The old clock John, a middle-aged man living a quiet life in a small town in America, cherished a single precious keepsake, an old clock that his father had left him before passing away. The clock, worn and weathered with time, no longer kept perfect time. Its hour and minute hands were slightly misaligned, but to John, the clock was more than just an object. It was a tangible connection to his late father. One morning, as John woke up and glanced at the clock, he noticed it had stopped ticking. Panic set in. He feared that if he lost the clock, he would lose his last tie to his father. Determined to save it, John took the clock to Mr. Thompson's repair shop, a small, cluttered store run by an elderly watchmaker who was known throughout the town for his skill. Mr. Thompson carefully examined the clock with his magnifying glass. After a moment, he looked up at John and said, "This clock is very old, and many of its parts are worn out. I can try to fix it, but you should know it might never work like new again." John, without hesitation, replied, "I don't need it to be perfect. I just need it to keep running. It's the only thing I have left of my father." The old watchmaker nodded and promised to do his best. A few days later, John returned to the shop. Mr. Thompson handed him the clock, which was ticking again, though not with the steady rhythm it once had. The ticking was uneven, as if the clock was struggling to keep up with time. Concerned, John asked, "Why isn't it running smoothly?" Mr. Thompson sighed and said, "I've repaired what I could, but this clock is too old. Some parts are so worn out that they can't be replaced. It will never work as perfectly as it once did." John left the shop, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. He understood that time had not only worn down the clock, but also the memories it held. While he couldn't stop the march of time, he could still cherish the connection it represented. Back at home, John hung the clock back on the wall. Every morning, as he listened to its uneven ticking, he was reminded that some things, though imperfect, are worth holding on to, not for their function, but for the memories they carry.